Valentine's bouquets come in all shapes and prices, but how do you know which one's best when there's so many out there to choose from? Well, it's simple. 1-800-Flowers.com is your Valentine's go-to. Right now, when you order early, you can get 24 multicolored roses for only $29.99. Or upgrade to 24 romantic red roses for only $10 more. It's an unbelievable Valentine's offer from 1-800-Flowers. 24 multicolored roses for just $29.99. Or upgrade to red roses for only $10 more. Roses from 1-800-Flowers are picked at their peak, shipped overnight to ensure freshness and her amazement. 24 multicolored roses for only $29.99 or an upgrade to 24 red roses for just $10 more is the perfect reward for thinking ahead. Look, make sure you lock in this offer. It's only good while supplies last. To order 24 multicolored roses for $29.99 or upgrade to 24 red roses for only $10 more, go to 1-800-Flowers.com, click on the radio icon, and enter the code WINGO. That's 1-800-Flowers.com and enter code WINGO. Order today at 1-800-Flowers.com, code WINGO. Well, I don't know if anybody's flying higher now than the Eagles after their first ever Super Bowl championship. And, of course, the theme from Rocky makes all the sense in the world, as every dog has their day. And Sunday, it was the day for the underdog Philadelphia Eagles. Let's just say it right now. Dilly Philly, baby. They got it done in Super Bowl 52. Welcome in to the Monday after the Super Bowl on Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. We are excited to let you know that coming up a little bit later this hour, safety of the Philadelphia Eagles, Malcolm Jenkins, will join us. Boy, he really set the tone in the first half with some big hits and some big plays, and then, of course, the defense kind of took the both teams took it off in the second half.
It really, really did.
But it was one of the more entertaining Super Bowls of all time. There's lots to get into. We'll get into that. We have a poll question up there, which is really interesting, which is which player is least likely to be back with their team next year? Is it Bill Belichick, the coach, Tom Brady, Nick Foles, or Rob Gronkowski?
This was the new one after last night, so go ahead and explain this one.
So after the game, by the way, Gronk had one catch for 9 yards in the first half. The first 4 plays of the second half, Brady threw it right up. He was targeted 4 times, caught 3 of them, and he missed them on a wide-open seam route early. But clearly the indication from Bill Belichick at halftime was, get the big guy involved.
Yeah, they see that large human being, throw him the ball.
See that dancing bear that was put together in a lab somewhere?
How about it?
Go get him. And after the game, this was Rob talking about whether or not he was going to retire after this season.
I'm definitely going to look at my future, for sure. I'm going to sit down the next couple of weeks and see where I'm at.
Rob, what would make you retire?
I'm not ready for these type of questions right now. I mean, I'm just going to sit down, reflect on the season, probably talk to my teammates. We fought all year long, all the receivers, running backs, linemen. I mean, we put all the work in together. So I'm just going to reflect on the season, proud of the boys, and just see what happens.
So that was the sound of him like about retirement, but it was something he said before that caught your eye and your ear.
I was listening to it in the press conferences live after the game, and a reporter came up to him and said, Gronk, what can you tell us about this discussion you had with some of your teammates about possibly retiring after this year? And the first thing Gronk said is, how did you hear about that?
Yeah.
Now, when I heard that to me is much more compelling and interesting than, well, you know, I'm gonna think about everything. Clearly, this was something that he had discussed with some people inside that Patriots organization, be it teammates, support staff, coaches, or whatever, that he thought was a very much in private conversation.
Right.
And then the look on his face, he turned and looked at that guy and said, how did you hear about that? So that, to me, leads a little more credence into this. Now, I'll believe you. I followed this mantra from you for years.
Right.
Remember when Brett Favre retired?
Yes.
And you said to me after that whole thing, never listen to a guy with what he says the first few weeks after a season's over, because you're just spent emotionally, physically drained, you're beat up, you're not in a mindset where you can think about, okay, let's gear up and do this again. But I thought when you put in context that first, how did you hear about that? In other words, I was absolutely talking about that with someone before this game. Does that change the context for you at all?
Not a ton, but it certainly raises an eyebrow. And I don't think there's any doubt based off some of the injuries he's had and then a concussion 2 weeks ago.
Big one.
And you heard, I believe it was Rodney Harrison in pregame talking about how Gronk had kind of changed this season. He wasn't going to be drinking or partying during the season. He had gotten on some of the TB12 nutrition thing going on and tried to take care of his body a little bit better. And certainly he got nicked up some, but with a concussion for sure. I think that may have added to it. We know the amount of surgeries he's had, especially on his back. And then that concussion, that stung him pretty good, no doubt about it. So maybe it was in his mind. But let me tell you, so I'll give you a little bit on that, yes. But anything anybody gets asked right after the Super Bowl about their future, man, do I put away. I just put away and say, you got to give that time, let that wear off a little bit to see where it goes. But that's why we put Gronk in the poll, because of his answer to that and just what you had said about how did you hear about that there was some discussion. So that's why, again, who is least likely to be with their team next year? Belichick, Brady, Gronk, or Nick Foles.
Well, it's interesting, too, because, Gronk is an interesting study. I mean, we all look at him. Oh, look at that big, dumb party animal. That's really not who he is. Let me be clear.
Yeah.
He goes hard and he enjoys it.
Yes.
I'm not saying that at all, but, he doesn't spend a dime of his NFL money. He has lived, as long as he's played in the NFL, he's lived off his endorsements.
Right.
He has banked all that cash. He's won the good guy award for the Patriots, I think, a couple of times for all the hard work he does that we don't see and we don't talk about. He spends off days at hospitals dealing with sick children. He does all of those things. So you may look at him, and I call him the dancing bear that was put together in a lab, but he has a plan. And I think he's really thinking about that plan going forward in terms of, hey, man, I'm only 29. I've got all this money in the bank. I want to make sure that when it's all said and done, I got a life after my career is over.
So that one was a little surprising. Not surprising at all that the 40-year-old Tom Brady was asked after the game about his future as well.
And again, what makes Gronk's answer interesting right after the game is listen to how Tom Brady addressed that issue when he will be 41 going into next season.
I expect to be back, so we'll see. I mean, it's 15 minutes after the game ended, so I'd like to process this a little bit, and I wouldn't see why I wouldn't be back.
So just the difference in those two answers, all right? And your point is well taken, and we talked about it a million times. I mean, Peyton Manning, we all knew he was going to retire, but he didn't get there till March. So it takes some people to get there. But just in the way that Brady answered that question and diffused it for the most part right away, as opposed to Gronk's, how did you hear about that? And I'm thinking about everything. I mean, that's a pretty big dichotomy between those two answers.
I agree. And listen, the only way Brady, and we heard it before when the Crafts have basically said Tom Brady has earned the right to retire when he wants. So if Brady wants to play, he's going to be back and it's going to be with the Patriots. If either one of the Brady or Belichick was going to be gone, it was going to be Belichick by getting traded somewhere. I don't think that's going to happen. Gronk, now that you threw that into the fray. So then that brings up our other choice there, Nick Foles.
Yep.
Nick Foles has another year in his contract, so if he's going anywhere, it's going to be because Philadelphia gets offered a deal that they can't refuse. Everybody has a price. Will some team now match the price again? Remember, the greatest conversation that saved this season and put Nick Foles in the category of Jeff Hostetler and Doug Williams as quarterbacks making 3 or fewer regular season starts and winning the Super Bowl was a conversation Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, and Howie Roseman, the GM, had before the season saying, is $12 million, do we spend that on the backup quarterback, or can we use that money somewhere else? And they obviously made the right decision in spending it on Foles. Now, do other teams come a knocking? What do they offer? And trade as Nick Foles end up getting traded by the Eagles?
Well, listen, why... I understand the speculation because he played great. And again, he's on a short list that has Brady, Montana, and a few other quarterbacks as back-to-back 350-yard passing games in playoff games in NFL history. But at the end of the day, Carson Wentz tore up that knee in late November. And what do we always say about an ACL, unless you're Adrian Peterson and you're not human? It takes a year. I mean, even when RG3, who tore it up in the playoff game against the Seahawks, tried to come back for the start of 2013, he wasn't ready. He wasn't right. So if you're the Eagles, you have the ultimate security blanket in Nick Foles.
I agree with that.
And look, you're right. Everybody has a price. that price would have to be so freaking over the top for me. Look, in this system, and that is the biggest part of this. In this system, it works for Nick Foles. When he was thinking about not playing football at all after a couple of bad years, he said he wanted to go back only because he wanted to work with Andy Reid. Well, who was Andy Reid's disciple? Doug Peterson. Doug Peterson was on Andy Reid's staff in Kansas City, and that's where these people all got to back and work together. The reason Nick Foles wanted to come back was because it wasn't Andy Reid, but it was Doug Peterson, and Doug Peterson had Andy Reid's system. This system is perfect for Nick Foles. When Carson Wentz is healthy, he's good. Let's just dispel that right now. There is no quarterback.
No. There
that is not going to happen.
No.
But why would you, if you're the Eagles, seeing how valuable this guy is as a backup quarterback, especially in the system you have and in a place where he's very comfortable, I mean, the price that you'd even have to think about it would be astronomical to think about trading him away.
And yet, there's a price out there. There's a price out there because you'll always answer the phone. You'll always listen. And it is a court with free agency and the draft. But we already saw Alex Smith get traded and what that trade went for. This is a Super Bowl winning quarterback who played well, certainly well in the postseason, and now is available. I understand what you're saying, and I'm with you. You have no idea how Carson Wentz is coming back from it. Carson Wentz is your starting quarterback. You don't know how he's coming back from it. Foles is 7.6 against the cap next year.
Which is such a manageable number.
Nothing. So, obviously, if he got traded somewhere else, he would certainly want to do an extension and all that. But he can get traded somebody else. The price would have to be very high. And you know what? It might be. There may be some team out there that says, we're going to buy into that. We think we're getting close right now, and if we can get a guy who has this ability, then we think we can now. That's taking chances. We'll see, because you said with systems and such, because at one point we had always said any quarterback that did well in New England outside of Tom Brady that showed a little bit and then all of a sudden went somewhere else and got a lot of money, never really panned out. There's no quarterback that left New England that has a better than 500 record. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo may go past that because he's played well, but certainly when Matt Castle left and any of the other guys like a Brian Hoyer went somewhere and such, so it's never really panned out. So you're taking a chance because, you look at Nick Foles after his 27 touchdowns and 2 interception season, then it was 13-10, 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, when he was playing for Philly that's a year after and then St. Louis. So it wasn't always this wow stuff.
No.
So what would somebody be willing to trade for him, and what's the price where Philadelphia would say yes?
Well, the reason why I'm inclined to say that they won't is because of the point you brought up at the beginning of this conversation. People are like, really? Are you investing that much money in your backup?
Yep.
I think they invested. If that's the way you approach this season, and it played out that you needed him, and it's a pretty cap friendly deal. I mean, I look, knowing that you got a guy coming off the ACL, knowing what you have in this guy, knowing that you were willing to invest in him when you didn't know how good he was going to be on this current Philadelphia team, it would just seem to me, if I'm Howie Roseman, who by the way was the executive of the year. Yeah. In the NFL, and Doug Peterson, who clearly now has some sway with some things he might want to say about let's keep these guys, let's let these guys go. I would be hard-pressed to say, yeah, they'd be willing to let him go for the right price when they know what a commodity he is.
Agreed. What's the price?
What?
Because you know it's there.
Jimmy was a second.
Right. Yeah. But as Nick was playing, how much did the trade value change as he was going up and up and up the poll and what he was doing, and now he's a Super Bowl MVP.
Well, he's a Super Bowl MVP. You know who else is a Super Bowl winner? That would be the safety of the Philadelphia Eagles, Malcolm Jenkins, and he joins us now on Golic and Wingo. Malcolm, first of all, congratulations. I know your emotion meter is probably at 0 at this point, but can you put into words what it was like when you realized we actually did it?
Man, that last play, they threw that ball up, and it kind of got bounced around a little bit. But when it hit the ground, I think you can see all of the defenders kind of pause for a second, had to kind of look up at the clock and realize, we had just become world champions. In the season that we just finished out, the way it started, the amount of things we've had to fight through, the amount of trust that we've had to have in each other throughout the year, it's just an amazing feeling.
And to take people there, Malcolm, that last play, like you said, everybody sees the 6'6" Gronk with the ball going up and while he's the closest receiver. And then the convergence of defensive players on the ball was incredible. But just take us through that play when the ball's in the air for those of us that will never be in that position.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we've talked about these type of situations all year. And rarely do you come across them, and especially with this much on the line. But with that ball in the air, it's just like everything's in slow motion. You obviously see Gronk. Everybody goes for the ball, and when the ball doesn't immediately hit the ground, like your heart drops. You're just hoping nobody catches the tip, and it hits the ground, and everything just catches back up to speed, and it just all sets in that we just did it. You know, we just finished and put the exclamation point on the entire season. We're world champions, and now the countdown is for us to get back to Philly as fast as possible and join the celebration.
Malcolm Jenkins with us here after a Super Bowl win over the New England Patriots. I got to say, watching that play, the first thing I thought of was that scrum play against the Falcons last year where somehow Julian Edelman came up with that catch. I was like, oh, my gosh, are they going to do it again? But they didn't. They didn't, Malcolm. You guys won it.
They did it.
Just so people understand, take us through what your life has been from the game to doing this interview right now, because I don't think a lot of people understand that you are probably completely sleep deprived. I could tell you a million things, and your brain would probably believe it just because the disconnect between body and soul is probably pretty crazy right now.
Yeah, we hadn't been asleep yet. We obviously had the celebration on the field right after the game. That took, a while. We got in the locker room and partied some more.
Yeah,
we left
you did.
The locker room and immediately went to the after party, and then just got back to the hotel maybe an hour ago. And we probably won't go to sleep until we get on this plane, or probably until tomorrow. So we're on cloud nine right now, man. Like I said, everything, we're just trying to get back to Philly as fast as possible. We know that they are partying like never before, and we are trying to get back to that.
Super Bowl champion Malcolm Jenkins, Eagle safety, joining us on Golic and Wingo, and that's got to be a nice ring to it to hear the Super Bowl champion part. So in this game, it took all the way until that 33-32, 9 minutes to go in the game, when all of a sudden New England got the lead. So take us now to the mentality of you guys held the lead, and this was a game where both defenses we know gave up a lot of yards, and now New England takes the lead. So what was the talk on the sideline?
Well, the biggest thing is, our offense was rolling, and we didn't expect them to slow down. They took the lead when New England's defense actually got a stop, and our defense was talking the entire second half like we just need one stop. One stop would win us the game, and we didn't get that stop until the end. And when our offense took the lead late in the game, we realized that was our time, that we were going to be on the field for our entire team and our entire season. And nobody doubted anything. Nobody batted an eye. We didn't have to have a big huddle or rallying point. Everybody understood what the time was and what needed to be done. And we stepped up. We knew that play was going to come, and somebody was going to be that hero. Somebody was going to go down in history. And that player just happened to be Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett scooping up that fumble. And that was the play we needed, the one stop that we needed on defense to get us a world championship. And what we wouldn't write the script any better.
Well, look, man, Malcolm Jenkins with us. Don't sell yourself short, man. Let's just make people understand about you. You started your career in New Orleans, a team that had never won anything in their 42 years, and then you guys upset Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts in Super Bowl 44 to take them down 31-17. And now you end a 56-year drought with the Philadelphia Eagles. So you can talk about everybody else, but it's pretty clear, Malcolm Jenkins, you're the reason the Eagles won the game. I mean, that's obvious.
I'm starting to see a little trend there.
There it is.
But,
there it is.
Nah, I mean, it's one of those things, I've been blessed to be a part of some amazing teams. That team in New Orleans, to bring that Super Bowl to that city when it had never even been to the Super Bowl was amazing my first year in the league. But this one is something special, to be able to be a leader on this team, to be a key contributor in all the things that we've went through this year. To bring it back to the city of Philadelphia is something special. When I came here, all I could ever think about was what this parade would look like when we won this Super Bowl, and I'm so excited to take part in that.
Again, Malcolm Jenkins joining us, Eagles safety, Super Bowl champion. And on a personal note, most of my career was with the Eagles, and I of a 9-year career, 6 were there, and we never got to the Super Bowl. So I can't tell you how happy I am for you guys to get there, just like what you said, for those fans, because those fans are fantastic. And also another feeling I never felt in 9 years was the clock hitting 0 and just the emotion that you would have with your teammates. I try and explain all the time that you spend so much time with your teammates throughout the season. If you could take us on the field and in the locker room and just how it was with you and your teammates when you got the ultimate goal in team sports.
Man, I probably broke down about 5 times on the field. It's just when that clock hits 0 and that confetti is in the air and you just take the time to soak in the environment and you realize that all that you've sacrificed, all that you've put in for an entire year, it's been worth it. And you've reached the mountaintop. That mountaintop experience is like nothing else that you can find. And then to get in that locker room and to just celebrate with everybody, from the equipment managers to the practice squad players, to coaches, players, it's an amazing feeling. And it's one that every team in this league scratches and scrapes for to get to. And only one team gets to enjoy that at the end of the year. And we are blessed and grateful to be able to be that team to celebrate that at the end of the year.
Well, look, man, go celebrate it, because we're looking at pictures in Philadelphia of people doing backflips off the awning of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. They are clearly ready to see you guys and enjoy yourself. Malcolm, I know you're a little sleep-deprived right now, but congratulations.
Yes,
enjoy
absolutely.
it. What a special moment. And every dog has their day. And the dogs in Philadelphia came through one of the biggest upsets in Super Bowl history.
Congrats, man.
Thank you.
All right, Malcolm Jenkins with us, Super Bowl champion. You know, he really set the tone, Mike, in the first half. That big hit on Brandon Cooks, and he was all over the field in the first half. And the Patriots really had to make some adjustments to deal with him in the second half.
And understand that hit on Cooks was a clean hit.
Yep.
Brandon Cooks, he established himself as a runner. He wasn't a defenseless receiver, and Malcolm hit him. You did what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to hit somebody as hard as you possibly can. And Brandon Cooks, unfortunately, you hope he's all right, but that's football. And as I said, both defenses gave up a lot of yards. Jenkins was a guy that was going to have some coverage on Rob Gronkowski, who had a big second half for that team as well. But as he said, that's what it comes down to. No matter where you are in the game, you don't think about what went on earlier. You don't think about all the completions that New England got. You don't think about the yards that they got. It comes down to, we need to make a stop. Now, the most important stop we need happens to be at the end of the game when we weren't getting a ton of them, but that's all we have to do. And then they did it. Yep. They made that stop. And I can't even fathom, I'm with you, that Hail Mary, when that ball, when they hit it and it was hanging in the air there, before it hit the ground, just how the heart had to stop on that.
I mean, the fact, we can get into this later, the fact that Brady even got it to that shows how great he is. I mean, it was 4th and 10 and he kept the drive alive from his 5-yard line.
Yes, he did.
Insane. Golic and Wingo with you on ESPN Radio and ESPN2 the Monday after the Super Bowl, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Those were the words of Tom Brady after losing a Super Bowl. It was the 5th Super Bowl loss for the Patriots, tying the Broncos for the most in a game where Tom Brady was expecting to win his 6th Super Bowl ring and be the only man to have one for the other thumb. Delighted to be joined now in studio by our NFL analyst Tim Hasselbeck, who joins us giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Timmy, Mike and I were having this discussion. There's a lot to get into here. I thought that, Nick Foles played great, 373 yards, 3 touchdowns. Tom Brady threw for 505 yards. Who do you think the better quarterback on the field was Sunday?
Well, let me, I heard you guys talk about this. Let me first say, it's like what do you like better? Wow. 77 in sunny or 78 in sunny?
It's always sunny in Philadelphia. It's always sunny in Philadelphia this morning.
You're so true, Timmy, because people think the person you don't pick, you think played horribly. You take either one of these performances in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And not taking into consideration like the context of who they are. You're saying that just nameless jerseys, which guy? I would say Brady, actually.
Yeah.
Because
win for me.
Well, listen, I look at it. I mean, they called, nearly 50 passes.
Right.
No turnovers. I think there's a reason it had never been done before. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was nearly impossible what he was able to do, and he did it without his best wide receiver who gets knocked out of the game with a concussion.
Both threw, or Brady threw 43 passes, Foles threw, or 48, Foles threw 43, both completed 28, Foles 68% or 65, and Brady 58. My thought on why I thought Foles played better, and again, they both played great, is I thought he threaded the needle a little better at times, because some of those passes, Brady is great, but man, were you watching at times going, how are these guys so wide open on some of these routes?
Well, you take the Brandon Cooks play where he got injured. I mean, he was wide open a couple times. Amendola popped free, but and I would say that maybe the best throw of the night was the throw to Corey Clement, the touchdown that stood.
Right?
Did you think it should have stood?
Well, let me explain it this way. Did I think it was a catch? Yes. Did the NFL rule that a touchdown catch all season long when they replayed it? No, they didn't. So I was surprised that stood. But look, Brady made some contested throws as well. The touchdown pass to Gronk is an outstanding. The second one is an outstanding throw. And then, and really even the touchdown pass to Hogan, he's kind of wide open.
Yep.
Because there was a little bit of confusion and Brady does such a good job of moving the safety that's how, Hogan was so wide open. But look, to me, I heard some people kind of, rumbling, hey, this is bad defense. And I will say this, there were a couple times that there was some tackling that wasn't great and there was very little pressure generated on the quarterbacks.
Agreed.
But I thought it was an outstanding job by the play callers and the quarterbacks. So I can't sit there and just say, hey, this was bad defense. I thought it was really good quarterback play and good play calling.
As a former defensive player, I was a little disappointed in the lack of pressure.
Yeah.
Especially by Philadelphia. I think before the one sack, I think it was New England that was actually getting more pressure on Foles than Philly was getting on Brady. But I'm with you, and I think one of the keys we had talked about was stay aggressive. And the play calling by Philly was doing exactly that. And why I thought Trey and I both picked Philly, one of the reasons is New England can try and take your guys, certain guys out, but Philly has just an array of places to go, and that's exactly what they did.
I said last night that I thought Doug Peterson should have been the MVP.
Yeah. Thank you.
I agree with you.
Thank you. We
spent way too much time together on NFL Live. Look, if you think about what he did, in all seriousness, from Malcolm Butler, or it's not Malcolm Butler, Jenkins.
Definitely
Jenkins.
Not Malcolm Butler yesterday.
Malcolm Jenkins on James White. That was a surprise, and he did a tremendous job on him. So that was kind of a move on the defensive side of the ball, and I'm sure Jim Schwartz deserves some credit for that as well. But then you look at everyone's thinking either take the points or if you're going to go for it, you're really going to let your backup tight end throw a pass on 4th and 1 in that situation. So you go and you do that. 3rd and 1, it's a hard play action fake shot play to Zach Ertz. Then 4th down with just inside 6 minutes left.
How about that play?
All 3 of your timeouts and almost no hesitation. Hey, we're going for it here. I thought his aggressiveness in terms of how he called that game really was the reason they won it. How many coaches have we seen not be able to do it? They talk about wanting to be aggressive, but not actually being able to do it.
I thought that was a classic try and get him to jump and get the first down and then punt the ball. And
he was all in.
And he was pressured on that play as well. He threw that pass back and away. At one point, it was James Harrison, the 39-year-old, getting pressure almost every play.
Look, we talk about it all the time. We saw it with Jacksonville. We saw it with Atlanta last year in the Super Bowl. Be aggressive. The Patriots are not going to beat themselves. But, by the way, the fact that it almost came down to an alley-oop at the end of the game shows how brilliant Brady is. It was a 4th and 10 from their own 5-yard line, and somehow they convert that to keep the drive alive. Yep. Look, just so people understand, and the reason why I talked about Brady, I thought he might have been the better quarterback on the field. Before last year's Super Bowl, okay, the quarterback with the most passing yards in a Super Bowl was Kurt Warner. And the last 2 years, Tom Brady's known for 505 and 466. So in a 2-year span, he's taken 2 of those top 3 away from Kurt Warner. Look, he's on another level sometimes in these games. But the aggressiveness I thought you talked about was the whole thing. I on one level I understood that 4th and 1 call or 4th and 2, whatever it was, because he was like, look, we're not stopping them. So if we give him the short field, maybe I'll have enough time to go down and get the 8-point play that we need to either win this thing or send it into overtime, depending on what they did with the extra point. So we always talk about it, but nobody does it. And Doug Peterson did it.
Well, he did it. And it was clear that the message to his quarterback came through too. His quarterback knew to stay aggressive.
Right.
And so, that was obvious. One thing on that alley-oop, as you called it, at the end of the game, that Hail Mary there, look at it again. New England has a chance if they have better spacing.
You're not kidding.
Amendola and Dorsett are right next to each other, and I'm sure it wasn't Dorsett that practiced it because Cooks was probably in there.
Right.
But their spacing is awful. They're standing right next to each other. You really have a point man. You have somebody facing the goal line. You have somebody kind of as a deflector, and then you have someone running the end line.
Yep.
And you have two guys standing in the same spot. If they're on either side of Gronk, they have a shot to make that play.
Tim Hasselbeck in studio with us on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. The sound you heard in there, in that rejoin, as we like to call it in the radio biz, was Falcons, was Patriots cornerback. He may be the Falcons next year, who knows?
Yeah.
Patriots cornerback Malcolm Butler, who did not play a defensive snap. He played on special teams, but he did not play a single snap on the defensive side in terms of when the Patriots defense was on the ball. And why was that surprising? He played in 97.8% of the defensive snaps in the regular season. Timmy, he arrived at Super Bowl 52 one day after the team on Tuesday because he said he had an illness that kept him in the hospital with Malcolm Butler there. So defensive coordinator Matt Patricia said he was healthy. They just went with matchups. Bill Belichick said he did a good job of staying in tune the whole time, but you could see from the start that he was emotional at the national anthem.
Yes.
He knew he wasn't going to play in that game.
Yeah, you got that sense looking at, sometimes when you see guys crying during the anthem, you don't know what it is.
Exactly.
If it's just the emotions, the excitement of being in the game. And, but yeah, it's shocking. And look, I could understand him maybe not getting the start because they thought they had some bigger corners that maybe were a better matchup with Alshon Jeffrey. Eric Rowe is actually a bigger guy. Batamosi's a bigger guy. And so I think you could say, Alshon Jeffrey's not a burner. He's a big physical guy, and so we'd rather body him up. So I could see him maybe not getting the start, but not stepping on the field, I think was certainly surprising for me. I don't know that it changes the outcome of the game. I understand the guy's disappointment, but it's surprising. It's probably shocking.
Absolutely surprised on that. His one play was the lone punt in the game by Philadelphia in the second quarter. So you wonder if more will come out on a reason for it. Again, as you mentioned, late a day to the Super Bowl because sick and in the hospital. But is there more to that? Both Bill Belichick, when he was asked at halftime, not on camera, but said basically it's the game plan. We're going with who we think. His stock answer, people on the field are the ones we think we're going to win with, and the size thing came into play with Matt Patricia talking about it. They were in their big nickel package, as they called it, with the 3 safeties and 2 corners. He's an unrestricted free agent, so I got to believe there's no shot that he's going to be back with this team next year. To your point, exactly, you may not start him, but to not play him at all? Well, one special team play was surprising.
Yeah, that's surprising just because you're going to play a number of different packages.
Yes,
you're going to tell me that there was no package that he ends up getting on the field. And look, I'll say this. I know, I think it was Ryan Clark's sound that we heard saying he thinks there was difference in the game, but it's not like Rowe played poorly, Right. I mean, and so makes a play on a 2-point conversion try where they're trying to get Jeffrey. He gets beat on the 1 jump ball for a touchdown, but that could have happened on Stephon Gilmore or Malcolm Butler.
And Duron Harmon, actually, who was playing for him, got the interception on the rebound off Alshon Jeffrey, and when it looked like the Eagles were going to put up even more points in the first half there. It is interesting, though, Tim, and we talked about this a little earlier, and we sort of alluded to it with you in the break here, the way Gronk answered that question, about the retirement thing, it leads you to a lot of speculation about what's happening there.
Yeah, and I think some people look at Gronk and they're like, "Oh, hey, look at this meathead. He just loves, playing football and spiking the football after he scores and kind of doing his thing." And Mike, you can speak to this as as somebody that plays, or played a position where you hit every snap.
Yeah,
like it's playing quarterback till you're 40. Is very, it is a lot different than a guy, playing nearly a decade at tight end. Look at, Gronk is coming off a concussion. He's asked to block a lot. He gets banged around quite a bit. He exposes himself, and he's had serious injuries because of how he plays the game. He's great, and he could continue to play for a number of years more at a very high level. But that position takes a pounding, and he probably feels terrible. Like, he looks amazing running around the field and making some of the plays he makes, but he probably he plays basically with like a robotic arm, because of all the injuries he had to his forearm. I just, I think you have to pay attention, and I think you're right in terms of just the reaction to the question. Like, oh, well, hey, how'd you know I was talking about that?
I think more and more players think about their mortality in the game, maybe in today. And I was just trying to go, listen, receivers, backs, guys that are going to get the ball, they're going to take hard hits.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a bigger target than Gronk, knowing that he's going to get his knees taken out. And not on cheap shots, but players are going to be like, where the hell am I going to hit him?
Yeah.
So you're going to try, or a high shot that catches him in the head, or a knee shot that takes him out, just out of survival, not on, I'm trying to hurt this guy. So I'm with you. I mean, I think he may be a guy, we have a lot of fun with him, and this guy enjoys the game and enjoys life, but his body has gotten beat up an awful lot, and he knows exactly the shots he's going to take. I don't think he's going to retire, but I can understand in the game today of where you have to hit him and his concerns about, more injuries.
Yeah, Timmy, in the 30 seconds we have left, we put that out there on Twitter, on our Twitter feed because of that question. Who do you think's least likely to be back with the team? Is it Nick Foles in Philadelphia? Is it Bill Belichick? Is it Tom Brady? Or is it Rob Gronkowski?
I think it would be Gronk. Look, you don't
really?
know what he was just going through. He had a concussion. Took him a while to get out of the protocol. You don't know what it was like for him getting out of that protocol.
Right.
It could have been a brutal 10 days for Gronk, after the championship game.
Timmy, we appreciate it as
Thanks,
always.
man.